And with that, the season is mercifully, agonizingly, thankfully over. Welcome, everyone, to the Fly Guys podcast. My name is Justin Goodhart. This is Cameron Klein as I stare at him across the screen as we sit here. And depends on when this episode was released, but I'll tell you right now that as we speak to each other, Cameron and I sit here before all of you at 10:09 p.m. on April 17th, 2025, as the Philadelphia Flyers season has concluded with, you guessed it, one more loss for the road as they lose to the Buffalo Sabres 5-4, closing out one of the most depressing, frustrating, and really harrowing seasons, I think, in Flyers history. Cameron, it's not exactly the start to an episode you want to hear. You want to hear a little bit more inflection, a little bit more energy, but you can only have so much when talking about this team. Happy Passover to you, and also happy Easter to you as well, as I know Easter's coming up for you guys, and we already talked about, your plans and how they've changed a little bit for Easter. How you doing tonight?
I'm good, dude. I'm good. And the Flyers are the Flyers. Listen, we knew, obviously how this last game, we didn't know if it was going to win or loss, whatever. We knew how we were going to feel regardless at the end of the season. It was going to be what it was. After the trade deadline, we already knew. And then the John Tortorella thing happened. I would agree with you, though, definitely one of the more disappointing seasons. I'm not going to say it's up there with 2021, but at the same time, it just this was a tough one, man. This was certainly a tough one. If you go back, listen to the episodes of us coming into this season, and they were very, very low, not super high, but there were some playoff expectations. There was an expectation of just like we were right on the doorstep last year, and this team with additions of Michkov and maybe a healthy Jamie Drysdale and just a more put together team that has played a full year together.
Yep.
Maybe they can make something happen, but no. And listen to this, man. I tried to stream the game tonight, and also I apologize because my allergies are just they're being a thing. But I'm trying to stream the game tonight, and I'm struggling finding a stream. And I just got to the point where I'm thinking to myself, I'm sorry, NHL. I'm trying to watch the Sabres versus the Flyers on April 17th, 2025. You should be paying me to watch this game, let alone making it be difficult for me to try to find the goddamn thing. But regardless, we got in to watch it and see another loss. But as you brought up before we started recording, Michkov scored. That's good.
Twice. 26 goals and 37 assists for the season for Matvei Michkov. And
that's good.
Cameron, what did I say to you before the season started? What was my benchmark?
17 and 40. 17 goals, 40 assists. You did ask for a -5.
He did not finish with a minus.
He did not finish with that. But the other two, he got well past that. So, and again, we don't love the guy for being a two-way forward.
No,
so,
that's
we don't
not
really
why
care
we
too
brought
much.
him to Philadelphia. It's not why he's here.
Mm-hmm.
The Flyers finish in dead last of the Eastern Conference with 76 points, tied with the Boston Bruins. The Bruins, I guess, have the tiebreaker because whatever reason, maybe they beat the Flyers more. And interestingly enough, the Flyers finish the fourth worst team in hockey, just in front of the Nashville Predators, a little bit in front of the Chicago Blackhawks, and of course in front of the San Jose Sharks. So there's that. They tied with the same amount of points as the Boston Bruins and the Seattle Kraken. It's crazy to think that we're living in a season where the following teams did not make the playoffs: the Philadelphia Flyers, the Boston Bruins, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the New York Rangers, the Detroit Red Wings, the Buffalo Sabres, the Chicago Blackhawks. I do not think there has ever been another season in NHL history where the Boston Bruins, New York Rangers, and Pittsburgh Penguins all failed to make the postseason in the same year. So truly unprecedented times that we're living in.
Yeah, a lot of turnaround from these teams, man. The Boston Bruins had a monumental collapse right at the end there. I mean, the whole season was pretty disappointing. I don't really know. It's a lot of locker room issues. Fired their coach midseason. We know what that's like.
Yep.
There are certain teams that we expected to not be good. Obviously, Chicago, because obvious reasons. Buffalo. I think it's this is 13 years, 14 years.
2011. So 13, 14 years.
14 years since they've
nuts.
So Pittsburgh again, not shocked necessarily because of just the age of the team, and you thought maybe Sidney Crosby would be able to squeeze the juice out of him like a lemon enough, but he can only do so much.
I think that lemon is pretty much squeezed dry at this point.
Yeah, it's juiced at this point. I would say the Rangers are another really surprising one, though, right? Given their roster, given who they are. In the headlines for all the wrong reasons at this moment. Not sure if you saw that, but we could talk about that, but we'll probably say that for another time because that's a whole thing of its own. But if you want to look that up, just go ahead and type in, New York Rangers scandal. You'll see.
By the way,
absolute.
By the way,
situation.
The Buffalo Sabres' last playoff victory came on April 22nd, 2011. It has almost been 14 whole years since their last playoff victory. That, of course, coming in Game 5 of Round 1 of the 2011 Stanley Cup playoffs. The Flyers losing 4-3 in overtime. The Flyers then went on to win the Game 6 in overtime on April 24th. That was Easter Sunday. Ville Leino being a hero the way that he always was.
All-time Flyer great.
All-time Flyer great. And then, of course, Game 7, which turned into an abject disaster for the Buffalo Sabres as they lost 5-2 to Philadelphia. That game got out of hand very quickly for them. And that game was very interesting, too, because that was not how Ryan Miller's last playoff game should have gone.
No.
It should have never happened the way that it did. And obviously it wasn't his last playoff game. It was his last playoff game as a Buffalo Sabre, but I digress.
Yeah, he was a better goaltender than his career accomplishments show, unfortunately.
I would agree.
But,
I will tell you this, that I feel pretty just devoid of any sense of emotion about this season ending. I can't imagine many people listening right now are feeling a ton of emotions thinking about the Flyers. A really good example would be the text I sent to you yesterday, Cameron. I was sitting in a consignment shop, right? If you guys don't know what a consignment shop is, it's basically a hand-me-down store where you can go and you can drop off old clothes and people can buy them and that kind of stuff. It's like a thrift store in a way.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in a consignment shop, and I check my email, and I get an email from the New Jersey Devils because 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I guess, I bought tickets to a game with Cameron to go see the Flyers and Devils play. That was a 10th straight loss for the Flyers that night, in which, look at us, we got to see in person a 10th straight loss. Yeah. We got to see history.
Yeah, I think it was the classic game before the closed-door team-only meeting. It was great. Mm-hmm. It was a great time. I honestly will say it was, we've said this before, but one of my better game experiences I've ever been to. Sat next to a random guy, friend for life, that guy. Still think about him. Still think about that guy. But anyway, it was a rough night, but yeah.
So I get an email from this gentleman, and here is what he had sent to me. It's just, your regular, like, hey, Justin, following up my last email regarding potential group outing tickets for New Jersey Devils for the rest of the season and all that stuff, yada, yada. And obviously the Devils are going to the playoffs. So I took the time to respond to this gentleman because he had emailed me a couple times, and you know what? He's just being a good guy. He's just doing his job.
Yeah.
So here's my response to him. His name was Danny, we'll say. We'll just say his name was Danny, which was ironic. Hi, Danny. Firstly, congratulations on a terrific season for the Devils. I'm a diehard Philadelphia Flyers fan, which is like saying I'm a fan of drinking motor oil. Unfortunately, I don't have a great interest in buying Devils tickets, unless they are battling the Flyers, of course. I would ask to be taken off the email list, but I will also say you probably wouldn't want Flyers fans' money anyways. Much like our team, it's fake. Wishing the organization the best, not entirely because I don't want the Devils to win a cup, but I also want to be kind to you as well, since I'm sure you're a good salesman. Best regards, Justin Goodhart. Said that to Cameron, I was like, always be kind. Always be kind to people.
Dude, again, like I said this to you, but it's like I was like, yeah, you made that guy's day. right? Because no one wants to be that guy to
Mm-mm.
send the emails out, right? Like that's the part of the day where it's just like because we all get those emails. Everyone hates them. Everyone just goes, "Yep, right in the trash," right? Like just f
Exactly.
off. And I'm sure you get enough traction to get sales, whatever. But I'm not expecting anything getting that, right? I'm just sending this mass email and that's it, right? I'm just like hoping I don't get a bunch of other spam back to me. To me, reading that email, I would just think to myself, I was just like, you know what? Get this guy a discount. Let's go 20% off. 20%. When do the Flyers come next year? 20% off. Yeah.
20 off
Like, all
flyer,
right. Yeah.
all Flyers trips to New Jersey. We can give you 20% off tickets.
Yeah.
And I would say, and you know what? Then I would buy them. Immediately would buy them. Be like, all right, you know what? I'll take that deal.
And a good stadium too. God, I hate to admit
I like
it.
the
'Cause
Prudential Center. I like
this-
the, listen, I hate the team that takes the ice
Yeah.
over there, but I like the stadium.
Yeah, and just the city of Newark, the state of New Jersey. I refuse to compliment it, but the stadium's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Stadium's nice.
I went to a Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins game last night.
Yeah. You okay? So you texted me this. You texted me that it was a how did you put it? An underwhelming
It's an underwhelming. Stadium's very
stadium.
small. Very
Yeah,
small.
Okay. All right. I was wondering how you meant by that, but
I will say this: who I was there with made the experience a trillion times better.
Right.
That was really the highlight for me. Was
Right.
I enjoyed being with who I was with at the stadium.
right.
Small stadium, kind of like I think the outside of it looks very modern. The inside of it looks a little antiquated, I would say. But you know
Mhm.
what? When after even saying this to you right now, that's kind of what a minor hockey league stadium what you'd expect
Yeah.
it to look like. You're not
Yeah.
expecting it to look like the Wells Fargo Center or Madison Square Garden. You expect it to look it's smaller, less space, less people are going to be there,
Mhm.
and you don't need to spend a whole ton of time upgrading to these massive club box seats for an AHL team. So why
Yeah.
would you?
Yeah, it's part of the charm. Yeah, it almost feels like a local rink sometimes. Yeah.
But it was the team they were playing that I took a particular note to. They were taking on the Providence Bruins. Of course, that is right in your backyard, Cameron.
Yes.
And it was a back and forth game. At one point, I thought the Penguins are going to run this team right out of the building because I didn't think the Bruins were that good. And then the second period happened, and it was like the two teams just switched uniforms because everything the Penguins did well in the first period, they couldn't do any of that in the second period. But most importantly, and a big thank you to both teams. 3 of the 5 goals that were scored happened on my side.
Nice.
Because the person I was there with was awesome enough to get tickets that were like at the glass. I was at the glass, which was awesome. And then the Bruins won the game, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm happy for the Bruins, provided they give Cameron a job. That's all I care about. And so, it was fun to watch a hockey game, though, that I wasn't going to be emotionally invested in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I decided I was like, I'll root for the home team, even though they're affiliated with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'll root for the home team. It's fine. And they ended up losing anyway, which means I carried my Flyers luck into Wilkes-Barre. Sorry about that, guys.
No, it's a nice reverse jinx. It was a nice reverse jinx. Yeah, we appreciate that.
By the way, you'll have to do some background research for me. The Providence Bruins goalie's last name was DiPietro. Any relation to Rick DiPietro, potentially? I mean,
we will find out.
It would be kind of... I'm pretty sure there is. And I said it to the person I was there with last night.
Both goalies, I wouldn't be surprised, right?
It just feels too coincidental. Your last name's DiPietro, and you're a bad goalie. It feels like you should be probably related to Rick in some way.
Yeah, what's his contract like? He looks like him. I'll tell you that.
Oh, does he? Oh, it's got to be like his son.
We'll find out. We will find out.
Yeah, he's Michael DiPietro. Hold on, Michael DiPietro. Come on, give it to me. While they share the last name, DiPietro is not related to former Montreal. Not. Oh my gosh!
His father is Vic DiPietro. So no.
DiPietro models his game after New York Rangers goalie Jonathan Quick. He has a tattoo celebrating winning the Memorial Cup. Well, Michael, I do appreciate what you're saying with that. That is actually quite nice that you would model your game after Jonathan Quick. It's a good goalie to model your game after. And I apologize for falsely accusing you of being related to a historically extremely bad goalie who I enjoyed seeing the Flyers play quite frequently.
Speaking of which, is Bobby Bonilla Day coming up? Or did that pass already?
July 1st is Bobby
Okay,
Bonilla Day.
never mind. I thought it was a spring thing. Never
I
mind.
gotta
Okay.
say, what made you think of Bobby Bonilla Day?
I saw a YouTube short about it just recently where a guy was breaking down the full contract and like how
For those who
ridiculous it was.
don't know what Cameron's saying. So what
Yeah.
Bobby Bonilla Day is, the New York Mets years ago, and we're talking back in the 90s, signed Bobby Bonilla to quite a contract. And Bobby Bonilla had been an all-star with the Pittsburgh Pirates. This is obviously baseball that we're talking about now on a hockey podcast, but it's a funny
That's
story.
what we do here. Yeah.
So Bobby Bonilla playing for his hometown Mets, you think, oh, it's going to be a match made in heaven. It was a disaster. He was just a horrible baseball player with the Mets, and the New York media hated him, and the Mets fans hated him, and he hated the Mets fans in return. So just not a good signing. So the Mets buy him out of his deal, and they decide they're going to do like deferred payments on this contract with interest that accumulates, and the interest had accumulated over time from I think it was 1996 or 1997 all the way through to 2011 when the payments began. So every year on July 1st from 2011 until 2035, it's crazy. There's actually only 10 years left in this, Bobby. I hope you're saving up the money. The Mets deposit a little over $1 million into Bobby Bonilla's bank account. And it is a great example of what happens when you sign a player to big money deals and it just doesn't pan out. Sometimes you're on the hook for that contract for, I don't know, around 40 years they will have been on the hook for that contract for, which is insane.
You love to see it, dude. Really quick, do you know why they did the contract that way? You probably do.
I know a little bit as to why, but what was maybe not the full story.
The idea was basically that the owner at the time of the Mets, or maybe it was the CEO, I can't remember, but he did not have the money immediately to give him a hefty contract. So that was the idea of the deferred payments. And the reason why he felt so confident to be able to make those deferred payments is because he was taking the $5.9 million that was supposed to be going to Bobby and investing that with a very well-known, very respected at the time investor,
Bernie Madoff. Yeah,
Bernie Madoff, right? So then, when time came to pay Bobby, the money wasn't actually there. So he had, so they've just been in check.
Yeah, I should have known that because I knew that Madoff had screwed the Mets over. I guess I didn't realize just how badly
it's tied in. It's tied in with the Bobby.
It's interesting.
But the reason I want to bring this up is the Rick DiPietro. If those who don't know, 2006, it was Mike. Oh my God. It was Mike Milbury, right, who signed with the contract, I believe?
Yeah,
I don't know if he's one who drafted
him. 2006, though.
It says it signed in 2006.
Wait. Hold on. Because he got drafted, in the late 90s, I thought.
He was drafted in 2000. Yeah.
Drafted in 2000. Yeah.
Yeah, so it must have been after his rookie contract. But, he signed a 15-year, $67.5 million contract.
I'm sorry, what? Could you repeat that?
15 years, $67.5 million.
That was the contract. Oh, no wonder that guy's a failed executive.
15 years, dude. Who signs anybody to 15 years? But yeah, signed to 15 years. Obviously didn't work out. 7 years into it, they had to buy him out. So they're going to be paying him $1.5 million every year until 2029. So it's not as bad.
It's still something. It's another New York team.
It's another Long Island, northern Jersey mistake.
For the record, Rick DiPietro's finest season as a pro came in 2006-2007, 32, 19, and 9, 9.19 save percentage, 2.58 goals against average. That's a fine enough season, and he even finished 8th in Vezina voting. Fine enough season. Wouldn't say it was bad, but I wouldn't sit here and say that he was worth a 15-year contract over that. I would say that he might have been worth a 3-year contract. I would have signed him to a 3-year contract from something like that.
Yeah.
My favorite Rick DiPietro season, of course, just because it's so near and dear to my heart, is 2007-2008 when the Islanders he was actually an all-star that year, but it was the fact that every time they played the Philadelphia Flyers, and I think they might have beaten them. If they were lucky, they beat them one time this year. The Flyers just had their lunch. They had their lunch. The Flyers had the Islanders for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, and the dessert on the plane ride back to Philly. It was unbelievable how they could not beat the Flyers. There was a time when the Islanders beat the Flyers, it genuinely surprised me. Nowadays, if the Flyers beat the Kraken, I'm stunned.
Right.
I just also want to bring up a couple other things that I noticed about, or some final stats that I think are just worth mentioning.
And again,
Uh,
most likely next week or maybe the week after that, we're gonna have full.
I think
You
we
know,
need to take a moment, like
yeah, yeah. It's Passover,
digest
Easter.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's too busy of a time recently, and again, it's like we just wanted to get something out because it's over officially, and we're all just kind of crying together in a room. But go ahead, dude. What are you looking at? What are you looking at?
So we
Hit me with
mentioned
it.
Matvey Michkov
Yep.
finishing up with 63 points, a fine season for him. One other thing I want to point out, though, is Tyson Forrester finishing with 25 goals, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is really, really cool. Bobby Brink, by the way, almost 30 assists this season. Bobby Brink really kind of put together a season in which you won't be blown away by what you saw, but it made you think, or made me think to myself, maybe they let him compete in camp next year. Maybe they see if he can make the team. I'm not giving that guy a surefire roster spot, but he showed me something down the
Oh yeah,
stretch.
yeah. I think
Um,
people have been, he's just another one of those like young prospects that just hasn't quite turned into like this great scorer that a lot of people I think wanted him to be, even if those expectations weren't exactly fair. Um, but at the same time, we mentioned it before when we were talking a little bit more about when he was on a little bit of a heater himself. That whole line was, but there's nothing wrong with having a 40-point scoring bottom six forward. It's good. It's a good thing to have,
no,
and it's great for trade bait. It's good for anything. So yeah, it's one of the bright spots for sure. Bobby Brink
yeah.
has been one of the bright spots this
Brink,
year.
12 goals, 29 assists on the season, so 41 points, which it's a half a point a game, and
He's only 23
he's
too.
only he's 23 years old.
Like could be worse. Could be worse.
Sean Couturier finished with 30 assists on the season, which, obviously for him at his age, it's whatever. Travis Konechny finished the season with 24 goals, and he finished with 52 assists, 77 points. He really kind of fell off a cliff the
Yeah,
last month or so.
yeah.
Really, the last 2 months, you could say, of the season.
It's like
Not,
it's his best year statistically, but it's one of those things where it feels disappointing because he was on pace to be over a point per game player, and
I
it fell apart.
wonder how much the trade of Scott Lawton has to do with his decline in play, because that was his best friend on the team. By all accounts, it looks like it was his best friend on the team. I'm not
Hmm.
saying that with any inside information. I'm just going off of like what I assumed was the case.
Yeah,
Um,
Scott Lawton had pretty much an impact on everybody.
the Flyers had 9 guys with at least 30 points this year, which is kind of interesting because I honestly, it goes, Konechny had the most with 75, and then it goes, or I guess 76, and then Michkov
Hmm.
had 63 points. Um, One guy in particular that I do want to touch up on,
Say it.
and Mr. Owen Tippett
I knew it.
had
Yeah.
just the stupidestly disappointing season I've seen
Yeah.
out of a Flyers player. I really thought Owen was going to have like a step up and make a big, have a big season. And he only missed 6 games the entire year. So
Hmm.
I don't have much to say. That's a situation where the Flyers need to either A, work with him entirely and get him to a point where his contract will be somewhat justified by better production, or we better be prepared for a very frustrating player that we will constantly bring up his contract and just complain about how he does nothing for the team. Why are they sticking him on the second line still? Why is he on the first line? All that stuff.
Hmm.
I really think Owen Tippett's a better player than this, but 43 points in 76 games for a guy that has an 8-year contract in hand, that's not going to cut it. And he needs to be better, and he needs to be I would say he needs to be a top 20 player in the NHL to justify that kind of a contract.
I mean, he's up there at least, right? It's mostly front loaded. It's 6.2 for the next 2 years, and then 4.5. Or I'm sorry, no, it's 6.2 the entire time. I'm reading that wrong. It's a long night. But yeah, 6.2 a year, which is a lot. It's a lot.
It is.
And
Over 8 years,
can't have
that's
you.
around 50 million
Yeah,
in
I
total.
can't have you putting up Bobby Brink numbers, right, for that amount of money, which he only put up 3 more points than Bobby Brink did this year, or 4 more points. So yeah, I need more from you. And a lot of people, we talked about it throughout this offseason too with the Travis Konechny contract. A lot of people were almost a little bit afraid of it for that exact reason, right? They didn't want it to be too long. They didn't want him to. They didn't want it to be a bad contract toward the end of it, like Jake Voracek's was right by the end of it. Sean Couturier kind of now again looking back, bad contract. You want to get out of it if you can. And no one was really talking about Owen Tippett because he had a big step last year after 2 back-to-back great years for him, right? Like 2 of his best years back-to-back. seemed like we were on the right. Seemed like he was on the right pace, on the right trajectory, and yeah, to kind of he was a microcosm of the entire team, right? You just brought up a couple of bright spots: Bobby Brink, Matthew Mitchkov, whoever. The opposite for Owen Tippett. The opposite for Owen Tippett. Just
disappointment.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm definitely nervous about him because
I'm nervous about him too.
He's going to be 27. So yeah, I don't know. I want more than 50 or 60 points out of a guy.
I'm going to also mention this. We talked about how Jamie Drysdale had really started to pick things up down the stretch. He finishes his season with 20 points, 7 goals, 13 assists, minus 29. Next year's kind of like a make or break year for Drysdale. We need to see it. We need to see him stay healthy. We need to see him also produce a bit more.
It wasn't entirely him, but I'm not sure if you saw it, but the empty net goal that Buffalo got, where he just basically, and again, it was a 2-on-1 basically already, but he just blind passed it backwards and didn't know that there was a saber right there streaming up the ice. A rough look, man.
I missed the empty net goal. I did
just a rough look, dude.
Take a quick look at this. Hold on, let me see this.
I'm just kidding.
So, Drysdale's got the puck. Oh, wow. That's actually kind of funny.
It's just one of those, like, it's a blind pass. I'm going to get this out of here to keep it away from that guy. And it's just like, yep, yeah. It's one of those Scooby-Doo moments of like, oh, he's right behind me, isn't he? Yeah, he is.
By the way, Buffalo should go back to these uniforms.
100%.
Like, these are just so clearly the best uniforms they have.
Absolutely. Fantastic
uniforms. It's kind of funny because really Drysdale makes 2 bad passes. He tries to get the puck back over to Konechny. Mm-hmm. It's a softie. It gets deflected. Drysdale tries to get back and play defense. Then he drops that pass back to nobody except for a saber. That's actually one of the funniest things I've seen in a little bit. That's so dumb. That's a dumb goal.
I want it to work out.
Who cares? They were probably going to lose the game regardless.
Right.
They did end up scoring a goal, ironically enough, to make it 5-4. So I don't know. Maybe I'm giving me a little too light on Drysdale right there. But no, I think that ultimately what this comes down to is that a guy like Jamie Drysdale had some positive moments in the season, as did many of the players that we see on this roster. But ultimately, it's not enough to make you think that, oh, they're a shoo-in for next year's roster. There's really for me only like 3 players that I'm like, they shouldn't have to worry about competing for their job. 2 of which are Konechny and Michkov, and everyone else is kind of like, well, let's see what you got.
Right.
So,
right.
It's the season's over, guys. Like, rejoice. Baseball's here. It's a summer, and also enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's going to be some really good series coming up. Cameron was doing his bracket challenge. I'm going to be doing mine.
I do.
You want to watch the AHL playoffs? The Phantoms are making are in the playoffs. They're just letting anyone in the AHL playoffs these days. Yeah. The Calder Cup playoffs.
Yeah. You'll be able to see Alex Bump. He got signed to an entry-level contract. He's down there now. He's going to get at least some professional playoff experience. It's AHL. It's not quite the level, the highest level it could be, but still, to me, it's going to be great for his development for a guy who's worked out pretty well. This guy who I think they drafted in the 6th round worked out great so far. Mm-hmm. So yeah, best player on the NCAA champions, right? That's cool. You can watch that. I'm just excited for the Stanley Cup playoffs. I know who you're rooting for, obviously, right out the gate, Edmonton, because you're not going to let that horse die.
I'm not. I am riding. Guys, it's all about Edmonton. I'm all in on the Edmonton Oilers. Always.
I had a friend for years where it was Carolina every time. And it got to the point where he was just like, I've said it so much already that I need it to happen, right? That's kind of how I feel with you with Edmonton. Me, I don't know who I'm rooting for. Ottawa. That's who I'm rooting for.
But, I know why you're rooting for Ottawa, and I would be okay if Claude Giroux could conclude his career with a Stanley Cup. One, now he's a definite Hall of Famer because he has
Yes.
a cup.
Yeah, it's the one thing he needs. Yeah.
And two, like I don't know if Flyers fans would feel the same way about him winning a cup than they did when Kimmo Timonen was able to get one with the Chicago Blackhawks. But I know I personally would feel that way, maybe even
I
stronger.
would too. Also, considering it's not the Blackhawks winning a cup, that's
Yeah,
another
well,
thing.
we didn't know at the time what we ended up finding out, of course. But
Well, yeah. Well, I'm also just saying, I still see Patrick Kane just skating away from a net that I didn't see a puck go into. Still think about it, but
and you know
but
what
no,
and that puck is nowhere to be found.
Some say Gritty.
It's just funny because like when I went to the Chicago Sports Museum, they mentioned like, oh, the Philadelphia Flyers stole the puck, and I'm like, yeah, and I hope we melted it, and I hope it's just gone forever, and I'm glad that Chicago will never get to have that piece of history in their building.
Right.
Also,
it's interesting why they don't have. How do they not have it?
From the rumor that I have read, and it's unconfirmed, is that Chris Pronger took the puck and just simply was like, throw this out. That's apparently what.
That makes me want to almost go back. I won't.
I will never.
But it makes me almost want to go back and watch it to see if he does like pick it up. Like you just, because it'll be funny to just see him just like
it's crazy.
Shuck it real quick.
It is crazy to think that if our stupid, overpriced forward puts the puck right over Antti Niemi's head like he should have, who knows what kind of situation we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that the Blackhawks decided to throw a puck away because they didn't want the Flyers to have it. I don't know. But I do know this. I do know that thank goodness for Jeff Carter missing that shot, because now we get to have talking points like these where maybe Chris Pronger took I'm just like Jeff Carter, he was doing it for podcasts like these. So I salute you, Mr. Carter. Thank you so much for being the most unreliable player in Flyers history that I've ever watched.
Yeah. And here it's every I want to look into it. I think it's every like 7 episodes on average Jeff Carter gets brought back up. It's just
and it's
just
unfortunate
clockwork.
because I should take that time to like bring up Mike Richards more, because Mike Richards deserves to be brought up more. And like I can't. But the problem is, I think of Mike Richards, and then I immediately think of Jeff Carter. And then I think of that play. It just
yeah, man.
People tell me, oh, it was a great, like, oh, what a save by Antti Niemi. I say, what a horrible shot by Jeff Carter.
Just lift it, man.
Nah, put it in his gut. Just put it right in the sweater, right where the logo is in the sweater.
I don't blame them. It's 17-18. Those numbers they played together with the Kings. They want to stay in the cup together in the Kings. It's just So you want to.
Wait. Richards wasn't 18 with the. Was he 10? I think
he was 10. He was 10 with the with the Kings. Yeah, Carter was 77. I hate it. It's fun.
You did mention the NCAA Frozen Four championship.
Yeah.
So obviously I couldn't watch that game because it was Passover and all that stuff, and I wanted to make sure that the culture was respected, of course. But what I would say is, how about that? Western Michigan taking out Boston. That was pretty cool.
It was. A lot of people. I mean, actually, it's not super surprising. When you look at like their overall records and that kind of stuff, Western Michigan has a great team. What is his name? But what is really super fun to think about is Pat Ferschweiler, their head coach, right? And apparently, back in the day, he went to Western Michigan before he coached there.
Yep.
Apparently, used to play hockey with the guy young Keith Jones, right? And and Keith Jones was in St. Louis after they won that game, and apparently met with Pat and had a nice little meeting, nice little long conversation. Again, no idea, all of it's rumors, all of it's hearsay, but Keith Jones did apparently talk to him, so there is rumors. Kind of makes sense, right? There's the Keith Jones connection. There's the Alex Bump connection, who just signed the entry-level contract pretty quickly to play with the Philadelphia Flyers, right? He's here for 3 years.
And Pat Ferschweiler, a two-time Herb Brooks Coach of the Year in 2023, and then this year. He's obviously won a national title now. His playing career was pretty unremarkable. He played for the Roanoke Express. How could we forget? The Minnesota Moose, lest we remember. the Kansas City Blades, the San Francisco Spiders, and the only team on this list that I recognize, the London Knights. That is the only team that I
Yeah,
actually recognize the
yeah,
name of.
yeah.
But we're as we go through this head coaching search, we joked about it a couple episodes ago about like, oh, geez, just wait for the Flyers to hire Bruce Boudreau and call it a day. Pat Freshweiler would be certainly a fresher name and someone who has only been a head coach though since 2021. He was an assistant every year before that with Western Michigan.
Yeah.
With though the Detroit Red Wings from 2015 to 2019. So he has NHL acumen. He's got that experience. And then even before that, he was with the Grand Rapids Griffins, the AHL team, in 2014 and 2015. So we have there is some pedigree with this guy.
Yeah.
Did not know that Keith Jones had been with him. That was news to me. So appreciate you. Look at you, Cameron, with your scoops.
Keith Jones, dude.
You know,
he's out there making moves. He's out there talking to people.
He knows.
He's ready to go. I'm gonna confirm that though really quick. But yeah, man, he would definitely be. Again, we talked about how like you want kind of the younger connection. A lot of people are afraid of Dave Haxtell. Just saying that. Yeah, he apparently was there. Yeah, there's just a lot of rumors so that people are saying that he's gonna go after him. But yeah, I don't know. I like the idea. I don't hate the idea of bringing that guy in. Something you said as you're going through his pedigree made me think about something, but I completely blanked on what it was. But yeah, he as of right now, I like the idea. Right, again, young coach, he knows how to develop players, younger players. Most of the roster's younger players. It would be nice. Doesn't seem like it's an absolute shoe-in, but yeah, that's what it was. The lack of head coaching pedigree. So does Marty St. Louis, right? And recently Thomas Williams wrote an article on Broad Street Hockey about how, like, hey, man, that could be a route the Flyers go, where Marty St. Louis, no really strong professional coaching experience, but a great player in his day. One of the hardest working hockey players at the time, an undrafted rookie free agent that ended up being an all-time great player. And he has taken Montreal to a young, inspired team to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So you never know. You might not need as much of an NHL head coaching pedigree as you would think.
Speaking of Broad Street Hockey articles, by the way, if you don't read them, what are you doing? And articles that were written by our fine writers, Jason McNeil put together kind of an interesting one. Sean Couturier talking about his relationship with
John
Tortorella.
It was good.
This came out on the 15th. Couturier was quoted with saying it was just this is in regards to his relationship with John Tortorella. He said it was just all right. I'm not going to lie. I think throughout the last year and a half, what was portrayed in the media, yeah, there wasn't much of a relationship. I would say we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and it was hard. But I just tried to work with him and do what's best for the team because that's my job as a captain. Which is about that is like one of the most scathing. Honestly, since the firing has happened of John Tortorella, that's one of the more scathing things I've heard about him that came from a player.
Yeah.
Like, we heard the rumor of what happened between him and Cam York, and while it's unconfirmed, why would Ryan Whitney lie about something so specifically said? Who knows?
Right.
But, he said, Couturier went on to say that he wasn't going to get into specifics, but he did say it was a difficult situation for everyone involved. So I'm just going to say this now. It sounds like Tortorella really he might have had a few guys that were really behind him in that locker room. But man, does it feel like that he just was not the kind of coach that this team needed, nor the coach that I thought he was going to be in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I pounded the table for this guy to be our head coach. And man, does it seem like it turned out to be such a nasty little thing that went on in that locker room.
Yeah, you and me both. I remember saying that I feel like we got the well, how did I put it? The aged like fine wine John Tortorella, where he was more mellowed out and found more of a balance in between things. And I don't know, maybe he has compared to the past, but yeah, no, it turns out he's still kind of the same old. As you put it at one point, same old guy who just struggles to let things go.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think the best way to describe him. And yeah, it was disappointing, but yeah, it is interesting to hear Couturier talk like that because you hear most of the hockey speak from a guy like him. pucks in deep, yada yada yada. Well, it wasn't the greatest relationship, but we're just hoping to look forward to the future. And I'll be honest, it's one of the things that I've grown to somewhat like about Couturier a little bit, where he's a little bit more open ever since he's been captain. And this is an example of that. Him basically coming out and just being like, hey, because let's also be honest, dude. We all knew, right? Like he can't just come out and lie and be like, oh, the relationship was great. I'm trying to move on though. It was just like, listen, you guys saw it. You guys read that article last year that I was interviewed in where I said I didn't know why I was benched. Like he didn't tell Cam, you're like, yeah, no, we don't have a great relationship. Like, you're not fooling anybody.
Yeah.
So why bother trying? So yeah, I don't know. It's a refreshing take from Couturier, but I don't think it's anything new at the same time either.
And so with that, I just want to close the book on the Tortorella stuff. Like,
yeah,
I want to pretend
there's
like
nothing really
happened.
else to say. Right.
It really does kind of sour my view of Tortorella's like entire coaching acumen as well. Like it does kind of sour this for me, which sucks, but also like, you know what, it is what it is. Like, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Before we end the show, I just want to give a I said to you in the last episode that will never be released now that I was going to be in doing a Passover Seder for the first time in my life, and tonight is the sixth night of Passover. And I just wanted to kind of say, in regards to the fun that I had and the enjoyment that I got out of it, and I wanted to make sure, without naming names, the three people who I got to spend Passover with, and one in particular, was just terrific. They made the experience so fun. I felt like I learned a lot. It was something where it was kind of like this coming full circle moment for me, where for years I had talked about like, oh no, I'm Jewish, like I know that I'm Jewish. My mom's Jewish. I have family in Israel and all that stuff. So I know that I'm Jewish, but to finally get the chance to experience an authentic Seder was a really fun experience. It was very different. Like I had never experienced anything like that before, but it also made me really excited to do future, things in the future, like whether it be, Shabbats or, other holidays on the Jewish calendar that I would have the chance to be a part of. And the most fun part of all the things, the most fun part about that entire weekend of being a part of the Seder was just getting the chance to have as much fun as you did around the dinner table. The songs that were sung, and the little like mini games it felt like that you played and all that stuff. It made the experience all the more enjoyable, and definitely made me feel a lot closer to my family's background in Judaism and all that stuff. So I was very, very grateful for that. It was a lot of fun. Can't say enough about it.
Yeah, that's good, dude. It's always good to explore new cultures. It's also like one of the great things about traveling too, similar way, where you just get to just see a completely different way of life. And also, again, like you said, for you, it's a way of life that's ingrained inside of you. So it's also, it's almost like you're kind of rediscovering yourself, which is very, very nice.
In a way, yeah, absolutely.
That's fun.
Also, there was a hot tub at this Airbnb that I stayed at, which is like just incredible, just awesome.
That makes it easier. Yeah, that makes it easier.
I was in a hot tub when it was snowing. You understand how awesome that is? That's like one of the reasons why I would want to go to Colorado sometime, is to simply be in a hot tub while it's snowing out in Denver.
Right. I haven't had the opportunity. Like I have actually I have, but I just never took it. But like, yeah, it's I don't know. It's just I always envision, and this is the pinnacle to me of when you've made it, is reaching the feats that 1980s movie villains reach, right? Which is is like like Back to the Future 2, right? When Biff chilling in the hot tub. That's just, and it's just like, if you got to live that out, it's pretty rad, dude. It's a pretty rad experience right there. So,
but yes, that was a lot of fun. Thank you to those people for making that weekend super awesome and fun. Can't wait to be around them again in the near future for like more stuff like that. Happy Passover to everyone who celebrates. Happy Easter, Cameron, and to all those who celebrate Easter as well. And for the Fly Guys Podcast, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Fly Guys Podcast, on Instagram at Fly Guys Podcast. Once again, his name is Cameron Klein. My name is Justin Goodhart. We thank you so much, not only for listening, we also thank you for following us throughout the season in what has been a really just wild season of a lot of disappointments and not a ton of successes, but giving us the chance to make it somewhat entertaining for all of you throughout this year is what is the most rewarding aspect for me, and I feel safe in speaking for Cameron that it is the most rewarding aspect for him. Thank you to all of our people over at Broad Street Hockey for always being the most supportive, the most fun, and honestly the kindest people that you get the chance to work with. And we know that the off season will be busy, and we know that we'll have a lot of work to do, and this show is not going anywhere. So be sure to tune in as the off season rolls around. We might have some more research-based, episodes for you, which Cameron and I, that's our favorite type of episode to do.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. Like, again, as
it's like
it'll be nice to be
the palate, right?
Yeah, exactly. It'll be nice to just talk about something that's not like, well, they lost 4 more games. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
For Cameron Klein, my name is Justin Goodhart. Be happy, be healthy, and as always, let's go Flyers.